Welcome to the Life Brand Management Podcast with your girl, Brittany, hey, aka BC Starks. And I'm back with another episode. Not sure exactly which number we're on because I took a bit of a break, maybe a week or so. And I usually do these podcasts when I'm inspired to share a lesson or some sort of awareness that I've been made, that's been brought to my attention rather. As I believe that these moments are from the divine and they help me to gain wisdom from my journey. And I know that it could also help others do the same. So today's topic I wanted to go over is the topic of holding on to your faith. And as a matter of fact, I wanted to share an excerpt from one of Neville Goddard's lectures, Holding On to the Faith. I believe I'm saying it correctly. But in it, he talks a lot about what it means to hold on to your faith and what you're doing as you hold on to your faith. And in summary, he's pretty much saying that holding on to our faith, we are basically demonstrating. We are proving to ourselves that what we say we believe is actually a thing, which means that we're not going by the world's standards of time. We're not relying on our five senses. We are just trusting in the power of our imagination and the power of our attention and thought and emotion and inspired action to bring about that which we vision for ourselves. And so I'll share this Neville Goddard lecture excerpt, Holding On to the Faith. Neville says, "When you will say, every imaginal act is like an egg, and no two eggs, unless they are from the same species, have the same interval of time for hatching. So the little bird comes out in 3 weeks, and the little sheep comes out in 5 months, the horse in 12, and a human baby comes out in 9 months. So we are told, the vision has its own appointed hour. It ripens, it will flower. If it be long, then wait, for it is sure and it will not be late. Not late for itself. Don't expect that little lamb because it's being brought to birth in the same creative manner as a little chicken. Will come out in 3 weeks. It's going to take its 5 months, and the little human baby's going to take 9 months. If you know the moment, 280 days, you can tell when it began, can you not? It's going to be 280 days unless there's some premature birth that happens. But you don't want a premature birth. You want it to come on time. So an imaginal act is a creative act. That's when the seed or state was fertilized. Now it's going to take its interval of time." And then Neville goes on to say, "Now today you assume that you are the man, the woman that you would like to be, and actually assume that you are it. Let people in your mind's eye reflect the truth of your assumption. Now be fruitful to it. Persist in it. As we are told, persistency is the way to bring it to pass. But you don't persist through effort and through fear, because you lose all fear if you know it's going to happen. If the pressure is on you, and the pressure comes from all sides, it doesn't matter if you know what you did is a fact. You wait for the birth of it. It will come." That was a lot. But in that large lot of wisdom that Neville imparted on us, he pretty much is encouraging us to continue to have faith in our journey, to continue to persist with the tools that we're using. I hop on social media like TikTok and Instagram, and I often see people in the comments just in a great deal of despair and anxiousness. And I absolutely know what that feels like because I've been there. And I will tell you, it took a great deal of effort to shift from the state of fear and not having, and fear that I'm not going to get what it is that I'm wanting, even though I'm putting forth all of this effort. It takes a great deal of effort to change those core beliefs, but it is so worth it. So as someone who has shifted from a state of being anxious and impatient, right? In my last podcast, I believe I talked about the art of divine impatience, or practicing divine impatience, which just means that when you're feeling the feels of not having what it is that you desire, you're anxious, you're fearful that you're not going to get it. I challenge you to give yourself the space and the grace to have and practice divine impatience. And what divine impatience is, as I explained in my last podcast, is giving yourself the opportunity, the space, the place to imaginally create or imaginally have or give yourself whatever it is that you desire. Give it to yourself in imagination. Create an imaginal scene. Hear people in your imaginal scene confirming that what you desire is already a thing. Hear them congratulating you. Hear them confirming and reaffirming, hey, I'm so proud of you. Hey, I'm so glad that you did that thing you always said you were going to do. I'm so proud of you. Look at you. Do that, because what you're going to be doing is tricking your subconscious mind. Remember, I talk a lot about how the subconscious mind does not know the difference between a real and an imaginal act. It just does not. It's the same reason you can have a nightmare and wake up in sweats with your heart racing from a dream, because your brain doesn't know that it's not actually happening. The imaginal scene is so vivid and so real when you are in a theta state or an alpha state, meaning your brain waves are so slowed down and you're in your sleep state, or your sleep state akin to sleep, as Neville Goddard likes to encourage us to create imaginal scenes just as we're drifting off to sleep. Because when you're in that state, your subconscious does not analyze. There's no analytical thinking going on in that state. You're not picking apart things to see what's real or what's not real. You're just allowing your imagination to flow. And in that state, your subconscious does not know the difference between what's real and imagined. So give yourself the space of divine impatience when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling not trusting, when you're doubtful, or you're just feeling like, where's my stuff? Or maybe this is never going to happen. Practice imaginal acts, but do it in a meditative state, or just as you're drifting off to sleep, or whenever you think of the subject. Just close your eyes and slow down your breathing and try to slow down your thoughts, and then conjure up a scene and watch how almost instantaneously that scene will soothe you. It will calm you down, because your brain and your nervous system does not know that what you're imagining is not really real. It thinks it's real. So if you're feeling peace in that moment because you hear someone say congratulations, and you feel the feeling of having it in that moment, and you're being in a space of gratitude, saying thank you, God, for allowing this to happen, like your body is feeling the emotions of the person who has the blessing, the person who has whatever it is you're desiring. You already have it in that moment. Divine impatience is so clutch, man. Like I've been practicing it for the past 2 weeks at least, from the time that I talked about it in my last podcast till today. And I've done it multiple times during the day. I do it throughout the day, especially if the subject matter comes to mind, whenever it comes to mind. I've become a great observer of my thoughts. I also talked about being the observer of thoughts in another podcast, and how important that is along this journey, because you get to separate from the program that's been keeping you from the things that you desire, the experiences that you truly want to have as you're in this life of yours, right? There are programs, maybe limited beliefs, core beliefs that we've learned over time, that once we're on this journey, we start to realize, wait a second, that's what's been keeping me from having the things that I want, because there's so much resistance. I have core beliefs that create resistance between what I desire and who I am currently being. And when you are doing these visions of your desire fulfilled, or your wish fulfilled, as Neville likes to talk about, you are giving yourself a dose of that reality now. And that is so, I don't know how else to explain it. I just really hope that as you're listening to this, you take this as a seed of encouragement, that what you desire desires you. Joseph Rodriguez is a great teacher who has a platform on YouTube. And he talks a lot about autosuggestion, as that is one of his favorite techniques to use to program his subconscious mind. And his auto-suggestions are simply affirmations that speak to some of his core beliefs that may have been limited. So maybe he believed that, he believed in being rejected, or he believed in being ghosted, or, somebody not giving him the time and attention. So he would auto-suggest to himself, who I desire desires me. What I desire desires me. And that is not just an affirmation, it's an auto-suggestion to your subconscious mind that speaks to your actual limiting core beliefs. And so I encourage that as well. But for me, my main technique has been divine impatience, creating imaginal scenes with inner conversations. And Neville talks a lot about the inner conversations and the power of inner conversations. He even mentioned it in this exact lecture that I read the excerpt from, where he encourages you to not just create an imaginal scene, but hear people in your life confirming to you that what you desire has already taken place. Not in the in-between, not trying to create scenes that connect the dots. You don't want to do that. The middle is none of your business. It's none of your business. The parts of which you are quote unquote waiting, you're not waiting for anything. You're not waiting for anything. It seems as though you're waiting, but you're not waiting, because waiting implies that you still don't have it. What you're doing is you're tricking your subconscious to feel that you already have it. Therefore, there is no waiting, because you're too busy being. You can't wait for something that you already are. And that's the key. And that's what divine impatience and that's what inner conversations give you, a dose of being the version of you that has that desire now. That is the trickery of programming your subconscious mind to be in alignment with your desires, your wish fulfilled. And I wanted to share that today because that is exactly the space that I'm in. And I really, truly believe in sharing as I go, because one day I'm going to look back and I'm going to be in awe myself at all the things that I documented along the way that actually played out. To prove to myself, as Neville Goddard talks about, there's no one to prove anything to but self. You are doing these things. You are on the manifestation journey. You are exercising your God-given creative abilities to prove to yourself that you and God are one, that your imagination creates. You are proving this to yourself. You are proving this to yourself by even studying some of Neville's teachings, Law of Assumption, which pretty much says that everything is you pushed out. And that's a tall order to fill when you accept that as a truth. When you accept that life is one great big mirror, you are embarking on a journey that is a tall order to fill, because it's going to challenge everything that we've been taught along our journeys to be true. It's going to challenge everything. But what you'll find is the truth for yourself. I've yet to meet someone who's run into Neville Goddard's teachings and has not had it resonate with them. I don't care what religious background they're from. No one has yet to run up against Neville's teachings and say, this is crazy, or this doesn't make any sense. Now, there may be parts of them that may resist taking accountability, but deep down, even those people know that there's truth to it. As I show up, as I treat people, then it's also reflected to me. And it's not to say that every single thing is a direct connection to how you behave, meaning, if somebody does something violent to you, it doesn't mean that you're violent. It's not that kind of reflection. What it is an assumption that violent things can happen, and violent things can happen to you, and maybe, to some degree, some people may feel that violence is something that not only can happen to them, but maybe they have some kind of karmic, some kind of karma on them. You'd be surprised when you hear people talk about certain things that have happened to them as they are expressing their journeys, and maybe not necessarily playing victim, but feeling some sort of And who knows, it could be from lifetimes over. But that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother conversation that I don't know enough about to talk about. But with that being said, trust the journey, hold your faith, and don't think of it as waiting for anything. Just trust that when you plant the seed in your imagination, as you're persisting in the techniques of keeping your faith in alignment with your desires, as you are persisting in staying aware of your thoughts and shifting back and returning back to your desired mental and emotional state, that seed is going to flourish. It's going to harvest, and it has its own appointed time. We don't get to control the time. And we also don't get to say that just because we can't see the plant growing, or we can't see the roots sprouting underneath the soil, who's to say that nothing is happening? There's always action and activity going on behind the veil that we know nothing about. And Neville talks about it in terms of bridges of incidences, is what he likes to call it. It's a bridge of incidents that happens in between the time you launch your rocket of desire and the time you actually experience the manifestation of it. There are lots of things that are happening that have nothing to do with you, and some may even require some action from you, which will feel natural. It will be naturally inspired. It won't feel forced or rehearsed. So when people say, should I take action? Or I was thinking of doing this, but I don't really know. Well, if you're on the fence about it, then don't. Because if it's not empowering to think about, then it's probably not in alignment. You're probably not in alignment when you're doing it. You know, remember, action doesn't matter. What matters is that you're aligned when you take action. So do you feel like the one who has your desire as you're taking that action? Because if you don't, that's why you're doubting. So get in alignment first, then take the action. But action will always be natural and inspired. And it doesn't mean that just because you can't see something happening, that nothing is actually happening for you. In fact, Neville encourages us to assume that everything is always working in your favor, even the things that look like it's falling apart. Let's say you set out to have a rocket of desire to get a new job, but you want to find a job while you already have one. Well, you set out this desire and you start doing the techniques and you align with the highest version of yourself, and all of a sudden you get fired. And you look around and you say, well, I didn't ask to get fired. I asked to get a new job while I have a job so that I'm not out of income. Well, just because that happened doesn't mean that it's not happening for you. It just means it's not going to happen the way you think it should, and something better is happening. Maybe that job needs to go so that you can attract the actual job that you desire. So there's so many ways of the universe that we have no clue of, that we are not privy to, that we don't have the foresight for. But that's what trust and faith is all about. It's all about not relying on your five senses, but instead understanding that there's a higher power at play, and that you can learn these laws of the universe in order to work with that higher power. And trust is a major part of working with that power. So you're not forcing, you're not manipulating, you're not trying to take action to try to influence anything. You're going with the flow. You're believing that it's already done. You have confidence. You don't beg and hope and wish. You command. And so it is. I hope this podcast helps someone out there. Once again, I have my intentional creation course that is still on sale for $222. If anyone is looking for a coach to introduce a lot of these techniques that I talk about in my podcast, as well as some others that I've yet to mention. But I also share tons of receipts of how I've used the different techniques to help me along my manifestation journey. And I'm just learning to continue to practice and master a lot of these techniques and teachings from the great masters. And as Neville says, I'm proving to myself that this is real, that I am a creator, and that my imagination is of God. And so if imagination creates, I'm going to use it to the best of my abilities to prove to myself that nothing is off limits to me. And as I shed the old identity and shed limiting beliefs, I grow higher and higher in my consciousness, and I take myself and those around me and in my world to higher heights because of the changes that I'm creating for myself and within myself. In the words of the great late Michael Jackson, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. Man in the mirror. At any rate, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, toodles.